So starting to get comfortable on your mat. I know it's a little chilly outside. I'm going to keep my sweatshirt and my socks on today. So whatever feels most comfortable for you. Sitting up nice and tall, or maybe stretching your legs out or keeping them bent if you're on your backs. Starting to check in with how your body's feeling today. If you're feeling a case of the Mondays, I am 100% there with you. If you're feeling overwhelmed, I am 100% there with you. So starting to tune into your breath, maybe just noticing where you're feeling the breath. If you are feeling a case of the Mondays or stressed out or anything like that, you might be noticing your breath in your chest. As you start to explore your breath, I invite you to think about your diaphragmatic breath. So thinking of that deep inhale from the belly up into the chest, and exhaling from the chest back down to the belly. If you want to really focus on that feeling and sensation of this breath today, maybe even placing one hand on your belly and one hand on your heart. Maybe closing your eyes, shifting your focus inward if that feels good for you, or shifting your gaze down. Your diaphragm is a muscle that helps you breathe. As you find this deep diaphragmatic breath, you can also bring that sense of calm and relaxation, especially for today, maybe focusing on the exhale part of your breath. With each inhale, inflating your belly like a balloon. And then with each exhale, thinking about the core contraction, the muscles engage as we exhale. Breathing in and out of the nose if that feels good for you today. I know it's allergy season, so feel free to breathe through your mouth as well. Really focusing on this breath throughout our practice, especially thinking about slowing down our breath as we move through our poses today, our asanas. And if we feel that anxious or stressed energy, we can always bring our focus back to our breath, slowing down our breath, slowing down our minds. It's our greatest defense mechanism. Letting go of any expectations, letting go of any judgment, and letting go of any competition. Simply focusing on listening to our bodies, especially if maybe we haven't moved in a while or during our break or last week. Being mindful of that, remembering that we are in control of our practice and we have a choice in every pose and every part of our practice to decide what feels best for us. We'll make our way down to our backs if we're not there. Knees can be bent or outstretched, or legs can be outstretched. All we're going to start with is a nice big inhale, releasing our hands by our sides, stretching our arms up and overhead if that feels good for us. And then exhaling, releasing. So thinking about moving the arms with the breath here, finding a stopping point that feels good for you, whether that's over your shoulders or all the way to the opposite side of the room. Checking in with how your shoulders and that rotational movement is feeling. Feeling maybe the rib cage lift as you inhale and the low back lifts off the mat. As you exhale, feeling it press back down into the mat. Taking 2 more rounds of breath here with this movement. I'm going to ask y'all to take one more big inhale and then just releasing your hands by your sides. We're going to drag them down into a 90-degree position. So our elbows are bent right outside of our shoulders and our palms are facing the ceiling, hovering over the ground. Thinking about your shoulders as an anchor here. So pressing your shoulder blades into the mat, still finding a natural breath. As we inhale, all we're doing is rotating, lifting our palms up. So from our shoulder, slowly coming palms down towards the earth, not pushing, but just finding a stopping point where your shoulders feel good. And then as we inhale, we'll bring them back towards the other side. Taking that motion here with your breath. So inhaling, palms come towards the ground. And exhaling, the back of the hand comes towards the ground. What we're focusing on here is engaging our scapula, engaging our rotator muscles around our shoulders. So getting this nice little warm up for our upper body before we get into any standing strength work. We'll take one more round of breath here with this nice, easy movement. And then when we're ready, we can inhale, stretch our arms out as long as we'd like. As we exhale, we'll pull our knees into our chest, grabbing onto our thighs, under our hamstring, on our hamstring, maybe rocking side to side, massaging the low back if that feels good. Taking our arms out to a T position, so our shoulders on the mat, palms face up, right by our sides. And then from here, taking our knees and floating them over our hips to that tabletop position, so our shins are parallel to the floor. Inhaling here, belly button to spine. As we exhale, slowly dropping the knees over to the right side. We can hover them over the floor, or we can drop them all the way to the floor, maybe a block. As we inhale, we lift back to center. And as we exhale, we drop to the right. So we're just alternating sides here, maybe hovering, engaging the oblique muscles, inhaling to come back to center, and alternating. If it feels better for you, you can also make a fist, pressing your elbows down to feel that connection on the mat, the shoulder connection. Getting some nice rotational movement in our lower body and engaging our internal and external obliques. Also, rotational movement of our lumbar spine and our thoracic spine. Finishing up whichever side you're on, and then we'll meet back at the center. Slowly bringing our feet to the mat. Hands come in by the sides. Pressing into our feet here as we inhale, belly button to spine. So we feel that core brace as we lift our hips up to the ceiling in our bridge pose. Exhaling, we'll slowly bring the hips back down. So we can find a neutral spine, or if we want to, we can find a little posterior pelvic tilt as we move into our bridge, whatever feels best for you today. Starting to focus on warming up the muscles of our back body. So our hamstrings, our glutes, and our low back, as well as our core muscles. And as you move through your bridge, I want you to think about opening up through the thigh, the front of the thigh, also the hip flexor. So you'll feel that nice extension in the hips. Taking 2 more rounds of your bridge. And then when you're ready, we'll meet with our backs on the mat, walking our feet to the long edges. From here, we can just slowly windshield wipe our knees side to side. Feeling that nice release in the hips, in the quad, and the low back. When you're ready, let's inhale, bring the knees into the chest. As we exhale, we can drop our knees to one side to prop ourselves up to seated, or we can lift our head and shoulders, slowly rolling ourselves up to the top of the mat, shifting around into that all fours, hands and knees. So hands under our shoulders, knees under our hips here. And I'm actually going to teach y'all a little trick as we sit up onto our knees here. We can keep our feet flexed, so we should also feel a nice stretch in the back of the feet. I want y'all to take your arms out in front of me and first turn your palms up. Awesome. All right, so your biceps should be shining towards the ceiling, right? So externally rotating through the shoulder there. All I want you to do, instead of turning your entire arm down from this position, is just rotating the forearm and the palm. So you can even hold your bicep here. All I want you to do is rotate the palm, right? And then you can extend the other hand, palm up, rotate forearm and palm. So there's still that external rotation. Take your hands and come down into your all fours. And you're in that perfect position here, pressing into the palm. So moving through our cat and cow as we inhale, starting with our hips, belly relaxes, heart lifts, chest lifts, head lifts, exhaling chin to chest. Rounding through the spine, moving into that flexion and extension. So inhaling, lifting our head and our heart. Exhaling, chin to chest, rounding, belly button to spine. Just moving with your own breath here in a way that feels good for you. Adding in any other movements that maybe your body is telling you to explore or that you're wanting to explore. Maybe holding your cat or your cow if one or the other feels better for you today. Taking 2 more rounds of your cat and cow. And then we'll come back to our all fours, hands and knees. From here, moving into a little more core activation in this prone position. I want you to think about pressing your right hand and your left knee into the mat. So working on some hip stability here. Right hand and left knee is into the mat. As we inhale, right hand and left knee in the mat. As we inhale, our left arm reaches and our right leg reaches. Core muscles engage in our spinal balance, also known as bird dog. As we exhale, we release and switch. So change here, little change, is just thinking about pressing into the opposite hand and the opposite knee before you move. Moving with your breath here, inhaling to extend and exhaling to release. So that little engagement of the hand on the floor, the knee on the floor, gives you a little more core stability and awareness before we start to move the opposite hand and the opposite leg. We'll take 2 more rounds of breath here. Maybe 1 round on each side. And then come back to our all fours. Still pressing into our palms. We can find a wrist release at any time. From here, we're thinking about picking up our right foot, taking it out to the right side in that kickstand position. So our knee stays on the mat the whole time. As we bring the foot back in, the foot hovers, the knees on the mat, we rotate and take the foot across the left leg. From here, this is called wagging our tail. We take the right foot to the right side, and can you look towards your right foot? So you should feel a side stretch, flexion in the spine. And then coming back to center, maybe starting to match the breath, we look over to the left. Inhaling to the right. And exhaling to the left. One more time on this side, you're getting external rotation in the hips. You're also getting that nice core engagement. Coming back to center, we'll switch sides. So pressing our left knee into the mat as we take the left foot out to the left side, we look towards the left. And then we look towards the right as we take the foot to the right side. Noticing our hips might sway side to side. That's what we want. Feeling that lateral flexion in our spine. Specifically our cervical and thoracic spine, but you should feel it in your lumbar lower back as well. One more time on each side. If the foot movement doesn't feel good, you can do this without moving the foot as well. And then we'll slowly come back to center, finding that all fours, taking our knees to the long edges of the mat, setting the hips towards the heels to find child's pose. Now arms can be outstretched here. You can find your block, maybe pressing your head on the block, especially if you're feeling any sort of sinus pressure or stuffed up nose or anything like that, feeling free to keep the head above the heart. Taking a few deep breaths here, checking in with your body, remembering that this is almost like our home base pose. We can come back to child's pose at any time in our practice. From here, we'll walk our hands over to the right side of our mat, maybe reaching a little further with the left hand, getting a little bit more shoulder and upper back engagement here. And then we'll walk the hands across the mat and over to the left side, reaching a little further with the right hand. Let's do that one more time on each side. And then walking to the left. As you walk your hands back to center, thinking about that inhale, coming up to find your plank position, remembering that hand placement we practiced at the beginning of class. So internal rotation and external rotation. We shift the body forward, bracing our core. Option if we'd like as we exhale, coming down halfway, elbows right by the rib cage. Inhaling as we press up and exhaling, sitting back to find child's pose. Inhaling, shifting forward. Option 2 if we'd like, exhaling, coming down into that chaturanga. Inhaling back to your plank as we press up and exhaling, child's pose. Option 3 if we want to find some more extension in our spine. Exhaling as we come down. Inhaling, lifting our heart to shine into our baby cobra. So checking here using our full back strength, and then exhale, child's pose. Let's take one more round of our half series flow with any option that we'd like here, any of those 3 options. Meeting back in child's pose. If from here, if we'd like to explore downward facing dog, we can tuck our toes and lift our hips up to the sky. Maybe finding a little walk here, stretching our calves, our hamstrings, waking them up. From here, we'll walk our feet to our hands, finding the top of our mat, maybe our block for a forward fold. Softening the knees here as we exhale, maybe shaking our head yes and no, releasing through the neck. When you're ready on an inhale, we'll lift up to find a flat back position, so lengthening through the spine. Exhaling, softening and folding. This time as we inhale, reverse swan dive. Option to lift the arms to extended mountain. And exhale, sitting back into your chair pose. So weight is in the heels, knees in line with toes. Let's float our chair one more time. Inhaling to lift our heart. Exhaling to sink down. Moving through our full sun salutations. Inhaling, we lift. Exhaling, swan dive, forward fold. Stepping back to find your plank, knees or toes. Inhaling, remembering your 3 options, so chaturanga or not. Maybe you want to explore full cobra. Exhale, down dog or child's pose. Stepping to the top of your mat as you inhale. Exhaling, forward fold. Inhale, reverse swan dive. And exhale, chair, option to extend the arms. Inhale, we lift, shining our heart. Exhale, swan dive, forward fold. Stepping back to find your plank. Shifting forward, remembering your options, bracing your core, elbows in. Optional cobra, exhale, child's pose or down dog. Stepping into lunge or walking to the top of your mat, forward fold. Inhale, reverse swan dive. And exhale, chair. We're going to do 2 more rounds of your sun salutations. at your own pace, and remembering that you can add in whatever might feel good for you or take away, i.e. remove what doesn't serve you today in your practice. So if you're not feeling down dog or chaturanga today, remember that it's always optional. Once you finish your 2 rounds of your sun salutations, we will meet in our child's pose or our down dog. Rounding out your sun salutations wherever you are. Once again, meeting in child's pose or down dog. Walking our feet to the top of the mat, meeting in a forward fold. Maybe finding our block here to help us or bring the ground up to meet us. From here, all we're gonna do is step our right leg back, keeping our left foot forward and lowering the knee to the floor for that low lunge. You have some options here. So you can explore this deep low lunge, maybe shifting the hips forward and down, making sure the knee's in line with the toes. You can shift forward and shift back for the hamstring. You can also come up if this feels better for you for your hip flexor today. So lifting the chest, maybe adding on an arm reach. Any of those options, we're just checking in with how our hips are feeling today because we are going to be doing a lot of extension. So I want to get our hips nice and warm before we do that. Whenever you're ready, we'll walk the hands to the front of the foot, tucking the knee, lifting the knee, tucking the toes, coming up into that high lunge, keeping our hands in at heart center for today, softening our back knee. So we should engage the glutes on that left leg or right leg to open up through the hip as well. Stepping the right foot forward, placing it on the floor for a warrior 1 stance. Left knee is still bent. Remember, we can take the feet wider if that feels better. From here, engaging our core. As we hinge forward, we find humble warrior. We have the option to shorten our stance, to lengthen our stance. We can also add on our arms here. So maybe the arms want to float back behind us. Shoulder blades squeeze together. So engaging our shoulders, core engaged. Maybe we want to add a flow to this. We can inhale, come up to our warrior 1, and then we can exhale, hinging from the front into our humble warrior. So move or not move, it is your choice. We'll take one more cycle of breath, meeting back in our humble warrior. Bringing our hands into our heart center. As we step the right foot a little closer, we lengthen this left leg, pushing our hips back to align our hips, walking our hand down into pyramid pose. I love to find the block here, personal preference. Remember, again, we can walk the feet closer or further away, maybe just checking in on how our body feels. Keeping a micro bend in our left knee. As we move our weight into our left foot, maybe pressing into our block, we're lifting the right leg, moving up to our standing splits. So balance, pose. Hip bones are square to the front. Doesn't have to be a big leg lift. Maybe we want to roll the ankle. Finding our breath here. On our next inhale, we just slowly bring the right leg forward and through, meeting in our one-legged Tadasana. Maybe keeping a soft knee bend on the left side. And then we'll slowly release the foot. We can release the hands, roll out the ankle, shake it out. Finding our mountain pose. Hands by our sides, palms forward, shoulders back. Inhaling, floating the arms to the sky. Exhaling, swan dive, forward fold. From here, right foot stays forward. We take a long step back with the left foot, knee drops. And again, options here like before, we can explore this hip flexor release. So other side, maybe coming into this deep low lunge. Maybe the hamstring is feeling tight or we want to flow these two poses together. We can also come up to our high lunge. This stretches more of the top part of the psoas. Maybe we want to add the arms. If you didn't know, your psoas, which is one of your hip flexors, goes all the way up into your rib cage. When you're ready from here, we'll meet in our low lunge. So hands frame our right foot. We tuck the toes, lift the left knee, finding our balance in our high lunge. Softening the left knee, hip bones are shining towards the front. Excellent. From here, we're stepping the left foot forward, meeting in that warrior one stance, maybe adjusting wider if that feels better. For me, I like the wider stance. We should feel a nice stretch in the calf as we bend the right knee, maybe sinking deeper into it. And then from here, as we exhale, hinging from our hips, coming into humble warrior. Option to add the arms here, finding that shoulder blade squeeze, chest and heart are lifted. And then maybe flowing these two together. So inhaling, we could come up to our warrior one. Exhaling, we can come down into our humble warrior. Always checking in with our breath, always checking in with our body, and adjusting to what feels best to us today. When you're ready, we'll meet back in our humble warrior. Hands come into heart center. We step the left foot to meet the right a little closer. Maybe taking the toes towards the front, straightening our right leg, keeping a micro bend, and then coming down only as low as it feels good for us today to our pyramid pose. Adjusting again, feet wider, narrower. We should feel this nice stretch in our right hamstring as well. From here, on our inhale, we're pressing our weight into our right foot, maybe using our block for support, as we lift our left leg up to the sky into our standing split. Maybe it's not a big lift on this side, and that is okay. Embracing all the shakes and wobbles. Finding our breath here as we slowly lift up, we bring the right foot forward. Coming into our one-legged Tadasana, maybe hands meet back at heart center. Maybe noticing we have a little more or a little better ankle stability on one side versus the other. As we release the left foot, we can shake it all out, coming back to our mountain pose. As we inhale, we lift our arms to the sky. Exhale, swan dive, forward fold. Stepping back to find your down dog or your child's pose. And from here, you can move through your half series if that feels good. We've got one more little segment we're going to do before we move into our final stretch and Shavasana. When you're ready, we'll meet back at down dog or child's pose. And then inhaling, shifting forward to our plank. Bracing our core here, knees, toes. Exhaling, chaturanga, lowering to the mat. So maybe if chaturanga doesn't feel great, knees drop. We're just coming down onto our bellies. Working that extension I was talking about in our hips and our back. From here, taking our tops of our hands to the front of the mat and just resting the forehead down on our forearms. So you're going to listen to my voice, especially for these cues. So from here, our head stays down. And I just want you to think about reaching your feet to the opposite end of the mat. So pointing your toes, reaching, reaching, reaching. Now, when you reach your feet to the opposite end of the mat, you should feel something engage. Your quads, they might engage, and knees lift off the mat. So reaching, 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 engaging the core muscles, maybe pressing your pelvis down into the mat. As we slowly lift the right foot off the ground, only about 2 inches. So we're squeezing the glute as we lift the leg. And then exhaling, release. Moving into the other side, still engaging both sides. Inhaling, we lift the left leg, only about 2 inches, feeling the hip bone pressing into the mat, low back and glutes engage, and exhaling, release. From here, inhaling, can we lift both legs, only about 2 inches off the mat, squeezing the glutes, pressing the hips into the ground, engaging the core, and then exhaling, release. From here, we're taking our hands out to our sides and then sending them back behind us. So I know our nose is hovering over the floor, eye gaze down. Can you turn your palms out so that your thumbs are up? As we inhale, pressing into our feet, can you squeeze and lengthen the legs? So quads engage, glutes engage. As we inhale, only lifting up just a little bit. And then maybe squeezing and lifting up a little bit more into your rockets, is the Pilates term, or lotus in yoga. And then exhaling, we release down. You can bend your hands, bring them back into your sides. We're going to do that one more time. So taking a little break here, and then we'll get some nice extension in our spine. Taking our hands back behind us, eye gaze to the floor. We rotate, so our shoulders rotate, palms up into the side, thumbs up, engaging through the shoulder blades. Inhaling, we lift up, squeezing the glutes, squeezing the quads, pressing into our feet, lengthening our legs. Inhale, we might lift a little higher. Eye gaze might lift a little bit towards the front of our mat, or maybe a little higher. And then exhaling, we slowly come down. Excellent. From here, we're taking our hands under our shoulders, pressing into our palms as we sit back to find child's pose. So a nice big counter stretch after that extension in our spine. Our bodies love the extension because we often are in flexion a majority of our day. When you're ready, walking your hands to your body, we'll slowly press ourselves up, shifting around, coming into into our seated position. We'll lengthen our left leg, keep our right knee into the chest as we slowly lower ourselves down onto the mats, keeping this right knee in. Maybe rolling out the ankle. Maybe rolling out the hip, finding that external rotation. And then when you're ready, we'll bring the other leg in. Meeting with both knees to chest, we can rock side to side. Maybe massaging the low back. We'll release the right leg, keep the left knee in. This knee can be bent with the foot on the floor or fully lengthened. And we'll just roll out the ankle. Maybe opening our hip here, finding that external rotation. Slowly coming back to center, we'll bring both knees into the chest one last time, but this time taking our feet to the floor, bringing our left knee in, flexing the left foot, crossing it over for that figure 4 position. And we have a couple options here. We can stay right here where we are. We can also find a book or a block to place it underneath our left foot to deepen a stretch so that the hip is lifted a little higher. We can also lastly reach through to grab onto our left leg. Stretching here, the glute, but specifically the piriformis, that small muscle that focuses on our pelvis and is right near our glutes. When you're ready, we'll slowly release. Left foot comes down, right leg cross or uncrosses, and we'll just switch sides. So again, option right foot on the block, left knee in, left foot flex. That's an important part as we cross it over. This helps take tension out of the knee, pressure out of the knee. So foot flex, we can stay right here, or again, we can reach through to grab on our hamstring on the right leg. When you're ready, we'll release. We can bring both knees into the chest one last time, taking any last and final stretches as we move into our final relaxation. Maybe that's happy baby, maybe it's a spinal twist. Making your way into a comfortable position whenever you're ready for our final relaxation. You can lay on your back with your arms and legs extended in that Shavasana position. You can also bend your knees. You can open your knees, feet together. You can lay on your belly. You can lay on your side. Just finding a comfortable position that brings you into that state of rest and relaxation. Maybe closing your eyes here if that feels good for you, or again, taking your gaze down to a spot or up to a spot on the ceiling that you can focus on. And just thinking about bringing your focus back to your breath, back to that 3-part breath, back to your diaphragm, inhaling deep from the belly and exhaling, releasing. Starting to wiggle your fingers and toes, just bringing some awareness back into your body and your space. Whenever you're ready, you can bring your knees into your chest, maybe rolling over onto your favorite side, using your arm as a pillow. And then we'll make our way back to a seated position. Any comfortable seated position is good. Sitting up nice and tall, we'll take one more collective breath together as we lengthen our spines, inhaling, lifting to the sky. Exhaling, hands come to our heart center. And we end our practice by saying something together that simply means, I honor, see, and observe the light in each and every one of you. It is also within me. Namaste. Thank you all so much for practicing. I hope you have a great rest of your week, and I will see you next time.